Texas Small Farmers and Ranchers CBO.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to this month's Knowledge Forum. My name is P. Wade Ross, and I am joined by our panelists our guest hosts here, who are Uchennaya Ogba, and we have Arlana Brumfield. And today we have an opportunity to explore the transformative work of Do Right by the Streets through the eyes of its founder, Desiree Powell, our special guest for the evening. Before we jump into that, a few housekeeping items. We typically try to keep this anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes to get you, in respect for your time, get you back home. So if this is your first time attending, format, typically we're going to be asking a few questions just around her background and some of the great work that her and her organization's doing. Then we're going to open it up to Q&A for everyone to ask, and then we'll finish things up with some quick pointers or maybe announcements, things like that, and get you on your way. So without before we jump right in, Uche, do we have any icebreakers on the docket for today? Oh, you're muted, I think.
Apologize. I am here. So yes, we do have some icebreakers, and if you're joining us within our chat, you should see it pop up in the polls as quizzes. First of all, can you please, answer some of these questions? Like, where are you joining us from? Usually we have people from all over. We hope that more people join us as this event goes along, but definitely would love to learn where you're joining us from. Another question is, do you grow your own food? What kind of food do you grow? It's very exciting to learn from our, learners what they're growing. Even if they're not growing, tell us if you're not growing. And what would you like to grow? Like, what is your vision for a good, healthy garden, farm, or ranch? We'd love to know. So if you're joining us, feel free to answer. I see 2 people on here, and Mr. Ples Montgomery and Mr. and Mrs. Ross. It's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to have you. So feel free to answer. We have a small group today, but that's okay. Just know that we will be sharing this on YouTube and on our social media channels as well. So everybody will get to watch this. And from what we've gathered, a lot of people love to watch our YouTube. So we know that for sure people are going to rewatch this video as always. So we're getting some answers. Someone said there. Let me see. Okay, only 1 or 2. That's all right. I'm just going to end the poll so I can see what these answers say. Okay. Let's see, where are people joining us from? So Fort Worth. Okay, welcome. And yes, they grow their own food. And garlic, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, greens, sorrel, melons, and strawberry. Oh, I want to. Can you invite me to the cookout? I love to be in Fort Worth when you start harvesting all them good vegetables. That sounds delicious. Thank you so much for your response. Thank you.
All right, so I guess we'll get the ball rolling here. I'm gonna start things off just with a question on really your background. Tell us a little bit about some of the innovative solutions and projects that you kind of encountered and implemented in the urban planning space, and specifically kind of how that relates to some of the challenges of food scarcity and access to urban areas, all that kind of good stuff. So kind of give us a little bit of your background and jump into that, a little bit about how that ties into urban areas and food scarcity.
Yeah, so my name is Desiree Powell, or D. I'm an urban planner by trade, so I typically work with cities and municipalities, organizations, individuals, around educating communities of color about zoning, land use, and urban planning, like what it is and the good and the bad. I started my own firm in 2020 to fill that gap from what I saw working in a municipality or a couple of municipalities of a lot of Black and brown folks didn't have the connect, they didn't have the connection, and they didn't understand like where that disconnect was as far as like buying property, how to use property, even if it's for something as simple as can I put a house here, can I put a trailer? And that really started to expand out. I wanted to see more people of color, particularly Black people in planning that I didn't see. And so as it grew into now in 2024, I came at the food policy avenue entirely on accident. I was always passionate about places, the way that Black people migrate and move around, but never really like full on into what like food is as far as policy. It's not talked about a lot in urban planning that it is a thing that you can do, like food system planning. But I was really fascinated from really childhood. My parents are from Louisiana originally, so northern Louisiana, very small, very rural. And so that was, as a kid, not thinking of it as food scarcity, just thinking of that's a trip to the city. I mean, it's an hour ride, but it was a trip to the city for pretty much everything that you needed. I started getting interested in like food deserts and how to create space to meet the gap. So kind of meet people where they were, understanding what that looks like in 2018, 2019. Fast forward to the food park. When I took it over, it was adding on to the original food park's mission or intention, which was to address mobile food permitting laws in the city of Dallas, especially as they impacted businesses of color. I wanted to take it the next step and create a sustainable place that now talks about food policy as a thing. And so we've been able to curate this space that we talk about food and how important food is in your everyday life, almost as important as housing, having a job, particularly in Black and brown communities that are designated by the USDA as food desert or food insecure areas.
Thank you.
For sure.
Okay, I like this. I've always been interested in urban planning and just how that relates to community engagement. So I guess this next question can really I guess drive that point. So how do you involve local communities? Like look at us right now. Like it's people talk about urban planning, like whoa, I don't know what that is. So how do you involve local communities in the urban planning process, especially when it comes to food integration and growing and putting together agricultural projects within communities?
It's very meeting people where they are and keeping it simple. When I came into planning, I saw immediately like there was a gap, not only in understanding it, but like you said, nobody knows what it is or what you do. And if they do understand it, it's like, oh, you mean like you're a realtor or construction. And so there's this weird gray area of like, we're neither of those two. We're like right in the middle of the boring stuff and the policy. So first understanding that at its core, at its base of meeting people where they are, which most people don't know what urban planning is at all. So gradually integrating that. And then when we talk about food, honestly, as I started to learn more about food policy, that became the segue into urban planning. Like I talk about food first, and then urban planning, and people are way more interested in talking about food in general than planning, typically in general. So being able to talk to people about where's the closest grocer or where do you usually shop, that creates like really genuine and open dialogue. So it's not as complex, it's not technical at all. It's, oh, I shop at so-and-so and it usually takes me this long to get there and this long to get home. Man, sometimes I wish we had so-and-so store. So when we do that in a community setting or a communal space like we've curated with the food park, it's it's really just dialogue. People subconsciously know, like, okay, I'm having to drive further than I usually would, or for example, in South Dallas, Save a Lot, a grocery store just closed down. So even though people may not connect the dots between planning and food policy, they know, okay, that closed down. It may not have been the best, may not have provided the best, but I know in the back of my mind that's not right. Like, we need grocery stores, right? So connecting the dots between the two is meeting people where they are, and the thought of, most people think about it all the time, of like, if you visit family or if you go somewhere or you're on a certain side of town and you're like, huh, I feel like every time I turn a corner there's a grocery store. It's subconsciously in your mind, but you don't really connect it to anything. So when we have those, like, I guess, more direct conversations of, what do you think about food insecurity, or not being able to have, grow food, or having the resources to do so, it's a lot easier of a connection of food policy and urban planning and community engagement.
Wow, that's really interesting, and it seems like you talked about the feedback that you get from people. Now, just out of curiosity, because I've heard of grocery stores closing in areas where it says that it's not working out, but how, like, where does the community feedback come in? And I'm sure, like, the city council meets and they discuss this, but is the community as involved as they should be? Are they providing feedback on how integral some of these grocery stores are to the community? Because when it closes down, it pretty much forms like a food desert, doesn't it?
Yeah, and so this is also, I guess, like a double-edged sword of communities, Black and Brown or Indigenous, do have grocery stores or do have corner stores that serve somewhat of a purpose of a grocer by, the needs that they have to be able to keep their license. But it's not a true grocer in the sense of, you couldn't go in there and get something and it probably won't brown tomorrow. You have to cook it like tonight. So the community is heavily involved. Of when they go to other parts of the city, they see a Whole Foods, they see a Central Market, they see, of course, in Texas, particularly in North Texas, within the last year or so, there's been a huge push for who's going to get the next HEB. And so they've seen this craze of the HEB and like the line and all of that. So when a store closes, the first thought is, well, why can't we get that here? And so the community is very involved. It's also a community, like most Black communities, that feel like they have been fighting this fight and saying the same thing over and over again, that food is medicine, food is needed. We need better grocers, and not corner stores, and not food pantries that aren't sustainable. So they're really involved. It is, as they started to kind of get more engaged with it on the back end of, okay, what is the policy that's making this possible to just kind of up and leave, but like their up policy of a store owner can just up and leave, and it's just like, well, we'll figure it out.
So along that line, is there any tips, any hacks? I don't even know what to call it, but we're kind of an organization that, like you said, we like to meet people where they are and really encourage and help them help themselves. Is there anything we can do as an organization, or even just individual farmers or producers who, have aspirations to get our, eventually have our products in the store, but more importantly, the food sovereignty part? Is there anything a community member that you would suggest they do to offset that probably is a need to know that you're not seeing us do out there right now?
I think it's people know how to grow. People know what that is to grow in their own backyard. But you have an aging population, so people aren't physically able, and then you have a population of a lot of families, so people don't have the time. I think it's having an organization like yourself. Like, if you table and you tell people, like, this is what we do. This is this huge connection and network of farmers, like, putting it out there that people see it and they see someone that looks like them. There are other farms in South Dallas, one that is white land, one that is Black land, and it's generational land. But I think seeing it in real time of, you may not be able to go to this farm and pull up and like make an order, but this is somewhere that they also need your support when they do have these when they are harvesting, when when they are in season, to support them, and then whatever we can do to, kind of create this ecosystem is what we call it, of this farm has this at this time of the year. If we don't have it at the food park and we're not able to, this is where they are on a regular basis. Please go support them. That makes it easier. So when we do find a location that we can open up shop as like this community-owned grocer, we're able to continue that ecosystem of your products are on our shelves. People know you, they've seen you, they put a face to a brand, and they trust that. People trust what they see. So I recognize that the farmers that I have met in the last couple of years, the weekends are tough. It's hard to find farmers on the weekends or in general. Like there's not a website directory of farmers until I found this. So I think having the conversation about it, I talked to you when you and I talked, Mr. Ross, I tell people very upfront that I'm not a farmer and I'm not trying to be a farmer, although I am going to push and advocate for it when any chance I get. Seeing somebody who's doing it in whatever, if that's a ranch, if that's a farm, if that's their backyard, the ledge of their apartment complex, it shows people that it's more accessible than it may seem on like social media of, I don't have the time, I don't have 5 acres to do that, or 2 acres or whatever.
Yeah, just watch yourself. Arlana, she's dangerous. she's gonna find you and hunt you. You will be growing something.
She don't have to grow anything as long as she stick with
That's
me with the
fine.
policies. She stick with me with the policies, but I'll drop off a container or something, just something.
I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all.
Good. Well, that leads us right into the next question. And so I'd already given you a little heads up from your own experience. This question specifically is directed at Dallas, the city of Dallas, and for our local small gardeners, our urban gardeners, and our micro farmers. From your experience, how can individuals or organizations such as myself advocate for policy change that supports urban ag and sustainable food systems? And are there any successful case studies that you can share besides Bonton Farms? I would like you to share maybe something a little bit smaller. I know that you referenced them, and I do know that there has been some initiatives and some policy, like the urban agriculture, which they call it the CUAP.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any instances with policy change for something a little bit smaller, not that big?
So that's a good question. And I think that is long term, or not even long, short to midterm, of like what I hope people start to take out of the food park from the education and the policy side of like showing up and planning and seeing, like, as you said, Dallas is a city that has a lot of jumbled regulation and a lot of jumbled zoning and all types of things. And so what somebody will tell you today, somebody tomorrow will tell you something totally different. And I think, especially in South Dallas, so Bonton is I'm not from South Dallas, but geographically, if you talk to somebody from South Dallas, Bonton is at the far end, so they're considered their own thing. There was no technically policy for Bonton. They kind of created what a lot of cities call a planned development. So they had some ideas, and the city may have had some stuff that was already okay, and kind of met in the middle of how can we do this. So like you mentioned, when they were small and it was just a farm, cool, no biggie, as long as they're not, slaughtering or anything like that, being able to have, and this is as silly as it sounds, having chickens within the city limits is something that it's very buried in cities' codes of ordinances, Dallas is included,
right.
It's not an issue until somebody calls and makes it an issue. So I think when we talk about food policy, we leave that part out of, okay, well, they still need these animals to do what they do. And if that is within city limits, then how do we protect them from neighbors calling or trying to harm their animals or what have you? And so with Bonton, it's, having the ability to start small and then eventually span out. So you have like a cafe now, and you have like a coffee shop and a small market, all this stuff. And I think another example would be Joppy Farms, which is further up in South Dallas. And so that one is owned by Ms. Kim High and her family. And so she runs that. Oh, Of course. Why would I say that like you don't know Miss
It was
Kim?
for her too.
So she is in that similar area with South Dallas that the regulation is all over the place. There's no policy that says no, but there's no policy that says yes. So she kind of probably falls in that gray area of, well, it's not bothering anybody and nobody's bothering you. But to get it formalized, so to speak, I always tell people the black and white part is what people look at when it gets down like to the nitty gritty. So having that in policy of her farm, I think it's located in the boundaries of Mill City, which is a neighborhood in South Dallas. They are protected from like a big industrial warehouse moving next to them. That's what I mean when I talk about policy of. So when you say advocating for it, it is documenting everything that you do and like how much acreage you need, if you're planning to grow, if you're going to expand, if you're going to have a barn, hydroponics, live there as well. So you can be protected by these laws because unfortunately, things that people say, they change and when mayors change, when council people change, all of their directives may also change. But if there's policy already in place that's adopted and it's in the city code, you can go look it up. That's your 2 feet to stand on if somebody comes in and they buy maybe that small acreage next to you that's been vacant for eons. And now they're like, well, we want to put condominiums here. Well, wait a minute. We have this to where we want people to build, but we want to also be protected from, once you build condominiums, it's going to completely throw off the soil and everything else other things that are related to farming with Ms. Kim's property. I'm not sure if there's property out beside her that she doesn't own, but using it as an example of farmers protecting themselves or even anybody who owns that land.
So, Kim is an exception because that land was owned by her family. So,
Sure.
The policies in air property is kind of a sensitive subject, but the micro farmer and these urban gardeners that are growing in number, and if I have anything to do with it, they will definitely grow every year. But the policies are a little oversight. Is kind of like policies made by people that don't really understand the limitations. So, for example, you mentioned the hens and chickens. That was actually an initiative that Dallas didn't allow at first. So policy change, okay, we're going to allow chickens in the city, but to make a profit, you need a certain number of chickens, hens, and you can't have a rooster. And I get it. The rooster's crowing early in the morning, it's aggravating, may peck at your dog. But the policies are short-sighted. Or for example, you can't get ag exemption unless you don't qualify as ag. So if it's less than 5 acres, it's not considered a farm. Your produce is not a functioning business. But we can grow, I can grow, I like to say aisles. I can grow aisle 1 through 7 of produce in my yard with the knowledge of using containers, vertical, which they do promote in the policy. But policy is not, they say, so I'm asking you a direction, or what do you suggest? How do we come together and try to speak against policy when the true farmer knows I'm not about to be able to afford more than 5 acres in Dallas? The price has gotten extremely high. And if I have acquired some 1 or 2 acres, I'm not considered a farm. So I'm growing out of my own, I'm working against the system to increase my socioeconomic situation. So we want to be able to sell in stores in this small space, but I'm not qualified. I can't get ag exemption. So my property taxes went up 100% in the past 5 years. So the small micro farmer, the policy says they want us to encourage this urban gardening. They say they want us to enhance the food security economy. And actually, for anyone that's watching, you can go to over.texasrealfood.com and it tells you about the initiatives. That's over.texasrealfood.com. It'll tell you about the initiatives. Bonton Farms and restorative farms were an example, but we're not there. We don't have access to the resources to get to that space. He did start a small, and actually he built that farm with the sweat of Kim Hyde. And then Kim was like, oh, no, leave it and go do my own thing. They have a good relationship. So she went on and she had land from her family. And so we don't have that privilege. And so what do you suggest we do to, I can tell you the real concept, the policymakers are not growing. Just as yourself, your expertise is urban planning and policy. My expertise is what's going in the soil and coming out the soil. Feed my family and increase my economic situation. How can I make the two marry or court for that matter,
Gotcha.
so that we can have an advantage? Because those
For sure.
policies are working against us.
So I think we talked about this a little bit when it comes down to you did, but that's a good question. And I'm glad you brought up the ag exemption thing too, because when I learned it, I was working in the city of Lancaster, and I would get people all of the time that owned 2 acres and family owned property, or they were older and they just wanted to start farming at home. And I had to turn away so many people, not turn away, but tell so many people that because that policy I think comes from the state and cities just honestly copy and paste it. They can't get an ag exemption. That means they have no protection. The property taxes are going to increase. Most people who are ag exempt, they're pretty much set, like grandfathered in, so to speak. They can build a barn. They can do all these things. That was something that I learned just having to be like the butt of it because nobody wanted to deal with it at the time. But I think marrying the two is like it's beating the system at its own game. So where you just talked about where the city has made that very small change of having chickens. That is with this group of network of farmers that you have. Okay, let's say for in that instance with like Ms. Kim and restorative, council president Adam Dowd will do it. Restorative is a micro thing. The state from Texas, hydroponics, micro. It's very massive, it's very large. It's happening on a large scale. Those things are great. And they're feeding people and they're doing what they need to do. How do we break that down and talk about, okay, we're not protected by those things. The fair is protected by historic landmark designation, a lot of other things that they're good. Restorative, they have the resources, they have capital. That is a different protection that we all know sometimes supersedes policy. Taking it and breaking it down to him of this is where you have in a city code that this is your small initiative to support urban farmers, micro farmers. Okay, but realistically, this is actually hurting us more than helping us. This, however, will actually help us not only grow more, be able to put this into stores and to be able to start to curb that food insecurity, even if it's not in a traditional grocery store. But if we can get that exemption and we can start to sell at markets or open spaces or I don't know, whatever the case may be, we can start to make a profit. So that's like step one of city policies that are already not talking to it in a positive way, not really providing a solution, but rather a Band-Aid. And then like basically ripping the Band-Aid off and telling them, look, these are your words, but this is where it needs to be better, basically. And understanding that, again, in South Dallas, food security, that it's a real thing. It is designated by USDA. You can look at any chart of chronic health issues that are a direct result of not having access to healthy foods. And again, yes, you have Fair Park or the State Fair and hydroponics, and you have restorative, but what do you do for the people in between and the people maybe not at those levels yet? How do you still provide and how do you still make money as a farmer? Excuse me. So you look at it from a policy standpoint, but also of Dallas is very pro-business. We're small businesses. In order for us to make money and to create economic mobility, we need to have policies that support us and protect us. Even as simple as having one hand isn't going to do it. And if that is the case, then how do we even homesteading is hard to do in Texas if you don't have a certain amount of land. How do we create that in the space that it's inside of the city limits? It's a property that isn't being used, it's vacant or probably abandoned. How can that lot, if somebody would purchase it and be homesteaded, how can we use that lot to do our micro farming, have more hens than what your code currently allows? Because realistically, the code basically is like you have a hen as a pet, and I just don't think people are having hens as pets for recreational use. And how are we protected in a way that my neighbor's not going to call on me just because they're having a bad day and they happen to see a hen or 2 or 3, and now I got a code compliance citation for something that I'm supposed to be protected by already. It sounds long-winded and it's like policy takes forever, but I honestly think that I'm a product of do first and ask later, because like you said, they're not farming. I'm not farming, but I've seen it in real time, and I understand that like these people really don't understand. They're not connecting the dots for 2 and 2, and if they do, they're connecting it like if you're already at the scale of a restorative or a Bonton. Like Bonton needed the space to do what they do. Restorative needed the space and the resources because, quite honestly, there's not a lot of other places in the city that you can have a container on the ground and it's not being used for purely storage. That's the real of it. But because it's in that setting of it is a farm, they're allowed to do that. That space isn't 5 acres. I'm pretty sure it's not 5 acres, but it's you see the benefit of it's next now to this parkland and Hatcher Station. No matter if they're providing anything from the farm to Hatcher Station to that parkland, on paper the optics look like this makes sense. Parkland is right here. There's a dart line, and here's restorative farms. All of these things that also there's a health disparity in South Dallas. So if people are able to get to parkland and restorative, although restorative isn't really open to the public, on paper as a politician, it sounds good. It's something that you could probably boast about at some conference of like, oh, we have this great small urban farm next to a parkland that is specifically placed in South Dallas to serve South Dallas residents, which is true, but not everybody's going to have that. Like you said, South Dallas land in Dallas has gotten extremely expensive. South Dallas is one of those, and even though there's more vacant property, it's still at an outrageous rate. So for you, for a farmer, it's vacant, but it's like I have to go through so much to get it to where I need it to be. So that's soil testing. If there's a building there, what type of building? Is this ground even like good enough to? Is it even worth the headache and the hassle of like pretty much scrapping a clean slate and starting fresh? So that initiative, the city loves to do pilot programs. I think that is a pilot program worthy of. This is the policy. How do you make it work for places who are not Bonton, and maybe places who don't aspire to be? They like where they have it at a micro farmer. They don't. They want to be able to do what they do, feed their family, live, and have their products in the stores. And maybe that's not on the scale of a Bonton or a restorative. Even with Miss Kim, how do you create policy for people who fall out of those exceptions? So I think, like I said, it is taking what they've already said, very small, very simple as like the HINs or the code of ordinances, and challenging that directly of, well, this isn't a realistic thing. This isn't actually helping us as farmers or anybody, quite honestly. Even we wouldn't recommend just having one hen. It's more hassle than what it's worth. This is how we can actually start to support urban farming, urban agriculture, micro farmers as a use, which is what they want to see from a policy side, but also as a business, which in their mind is, okay, well, that's increasing the tax base.
So
I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Do you think it benefits? So I actually work with a lot of producers and micro farmers, and they're establishing themselves as businesses. So do you think it's in the best interest to influence policy that we start to have these conversations, like with Adam, is it Balzador?
Mhm.
I can't get that man's name right. And then also, I'm not sure if you know that Congressman Jasmine Crockett, this is her district. Dallas falls in her district. She's very passionate about the food desert, but she was appointed to the agriculture committee. So a national, federal level, she didn't realize where the connection, but I'm here to help her bring in the connection. Your district, food desert, agriculture, let's pull it together. Do you think our best interest is to have those conversations with them? And what does that look like? Because you did mention pilot programs. So if these are established businesses, these small urban gardeners and farmers, should they put themselves out there to have those conversations, or should someone like me represent them to have those conversations? Because it's not in our ethnicity is not really comfortable with bridging those kind of conversations. When you're saying policy, it's kind of like,
Can I, before you answer that, can I piggyback just to see if this, because what I'm hearing is it's the economic piece that kind of is the driver of getting that attention when you're talking about policymakers. And so I just want to throw this in would it also help? We're part of our organization is part of a regional food business center. It's Regional Food Business Center Delta, and we're piloting a food hub in Dallas. We're also going to pilot one in San Antonio, where the organizations, larger wholesalers such as Food Buy and Fresh Point, are going to be buying directly from our farmers. And it's whatever they grow, big or small, they don't have to grow pallets. And it's really to encourage some of the farmers, our urban farmers, to get small wins that turn into big wins. So that's what you're hearing Arlana say when she's talking about starting these businesses. So would it even help to tie that piece in? Because that's actually coming, that's a government, USDA is backing that as well. So do those ties, is that what you're kind of talking about? If you really want to move the needle, is to kind of tie that together versus one micro farmer who says, hey, I want some hens, and a rooster, but not really holding as much power when you're trying to move that needle and proactively get things done. Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
Yeah, most definitely. You move stronger in numbers, especially when we talk about urban farming and agriculture. And to quickly go back to Ms. Arlana's point of when farmers, not being a farmer, but being raised around people who worked in the field, and now learning about them in the last 4 years, I've seen more Black people in the news about fighting for their land, from being bought out or being pretty much harassed by developers and buyers than I've ever seen in my 32 years of living, which lets me know that people they've gotten hit, or they've always been hit. People who are not white, who are not Black, they've always been hit, but now, like you mentioned, air property is very sensitive, but more people are now going back in and solidifying it. So you can't just grab it up off of the tax lien or off of the lien list of, oh, well, it was abandoned and it was vacant, so it's free game. I think that policy conversation is where the current state of Black farming and Black land, that policy put it there. It is policy, it is urban planning's fault that the loss of Black farms, the loss of generational farms has just increased year after year after year. Of, if they still have them, they have pretty much been cut in half as far as production or size. And there's been all these regulations that have pretty much made it to where you can't continue to run a farm and be successful and feed your family. So to tie that back into what you said, Mr. Ross, 100%, having more than just one micro farmer, you have a diverse group of people you're saying the same thing, but you have a mobilized and a unified front of, these are our issues collectively. And this is where your policy right now, current day, is hurting us from doing that. But this is where you said that food security is very important. These are where you talked about health disparities in all ages, from children to adults. These are the issues that are currently in South Dallas and Southern Dallas as it relates to food choice. Same thing with Congressman Crockett of, when we talk about food and agriculture, it's not just the stuff that we buy in the store. It's the stuff that comes out of the ground, how it's taken care of, how it's grown, and then when it gets to the store. So 100% of that pilot program, I think, is a phenomenal way of getting started. But to Ms. Arlana's point of, yes, I think it's both. That you can be the representative if other people don't feel comfortable, because they don't want to put their livelihood on the line. But hearing from those other people in a more intimate space where it's not like a huge public setting, but it is just farmers and maybe Basil Dua or somebody like that he can hear it directly, because again, they hear food insecurity and we're working with food and we're working to get a grocery store here. And like you mentioned earlier, they want your firstborn and your liver before they bring a quality grocery store to areas like South Dallas. Just from the developer side and seeing it in real time, that is the case. And it's unlikely to happen, for the fact that they have to give up a large swath of land, as well as be able to show the numbers that people here, their average household income can suffice. And on paper, it doesn't look like they can, but when you have access to good food, people find a way, especially if you have WIC, you have EBT. There are a lot of resources that the city does not, I think, put on display when it comes to wrangling in these large stores. I also don't think it's worth the effort of trying to wrangle a large store for a community that needs direct relation to what they're getting, as you talked about earlier. So I definitely think the pilot and having a mobilized group, a unified group, is a really good way to start like pushing that needle and pushing back on that policy of, like, if you were to be able to go into the Save a Lot that just closed and say, or even at the food park and say, hey, these are farmers that are growing around Texas or growing around the Metroplex. This is what they provide. This is what they have. This is what, just alone, what they sold here in 4 hours. This is the impact. What's blocking it or what's not in place right now in the city of Dallas that they couldn't do this Monday through Sunday and not just one day out of the month when we're open, or transforming a vacant space to allow this to happen organically. So it is definitely having that unified front, but also mobilizing in a way that you have these people at the top that are saying that they're trying to find solutions for our food agriculture, urban farming, and they're there. I'm looking at you right now. They're there. It doesn't have to be a repeat. It doesn't have to be a reimagining of the wheel, but it doesn't also have to be, something like restorative or something like, Bontage Farms. Like I saw Oak Cliff Veggie Project. How can you find policy and resources to help them expand and do what they do? Sometimes that is space. Sometimes that is policy that supports them to, maybe they do have a lot of parking, but it's not for cars. It is for them to host different things, for them to even have the space to maybe even put down a container like you see at restorative. So yes, I definitely think that pilot, the food hub you're talking about is a really dope way to get started.
Quinn, and we're talking a lot about Dallas. We are a statewide organization.
That's true.
So those of you who are not from Dallas, just know this applies wherever in all the urban areas we're talking in Texas and beyond. And while this may not be the sexiest topic, it is an important topic, and that's what these knowledge forums are about, is to expose all of us to things that we're just not talking about, every day at the salon or at the barbershop, So that's what this is about, is to expose us to think, do some more critical thinking on topics that we otherwise would be exposed to. And it's okay to not be the smartest guy in the room. This is a subject that I'm listening and learning. I'm trying to, figure out. And hey, at the end of the day, I know who to call. I need some help. So
for sure.
So I'm gonna pose a question just to shift gears a little bit, more on the farming side of it. And hopefully you have an answer for this question, but I know we're trying to do a lot of things to level the playing field for our farmers, especially as it comes to food and sustainability. Things such as building out cool box and cold storages on certain farms, just so growers can, who don't really have the same resources, some of these bigger farmers can actually have the technology to stay pace and still, grow and sell products. My question is, are there any particular technologies or innovations that you're seeing out there in regards to urban planning, food, and agriculture that you believe are game changers?
Oh, man. I feel like the most proactive, or at least on paper, I've seen it in Baltimore, so I've been looking at them very heavily. And I say proactive because they do actually have it as a field and a vision in their planning department. And I haven't seen that anywhere in Texas yet. I haven't looked at every single city in Texas, but I've looked at the major ones where it is very needed. So the city of Baltimore, they have a food systems department, and that food systems department not only works with planning, but it works with the health department. And I think that is such an important collaboration that we as planners and even people on the outside don't put two and two together of, we plan, we do the policy, we're supposed to connect people to the resources to improve their quality of life. But we don't know, like you said, we don't know everything about public health. We don't know the actual numbers and the data and the stats of, childhood obesity or diabetes or whatever the case may be. And so I've seen, at least again on paper, Baltimore's doing a pretty good job of at least having it out there, even if it is just a front for the public. They have it listed and they have some actually pretty decent tools and goals of how to interweave the two and how to start really implementing change and executing access to better food. So that's the best one I've seen thus far. And I saw one in Philadelphia. I can't think of the name of it. It's right on the tip of my tongue. But I've seen most of them up north. So I'm still trying to find a good one in the south.
Well, I appreciate that. But we actually just, as an organization out of Tulsa, who wants to partner with us. And so we've had talks. So this is just confirmation. They want to really jump in, especially part of the Regional Food Business Center that I just shared with you. They want to really put out there food is medicine and tying in how all that ties together. So thank you. I'm glad you said that because it's going to make me lean in. We get so many calls from so many different directions, and you can't chase too many different squirrels, but we're gonna go ahead and chase that one.
No, for sure. And I would like to say that there are, not sorry to be Dallas specific, there are some phenomenal people. When you said food is medicine, it made me immediately think of people who are doing it and have been doing it from a wellness standpoint. So there is a wide array of people in Dallas doing it that way. But yes, I definitely think this is a squirrel worth chasing. I'm chasing it, and you have more knowledge on it than me. So,
what does that look like when you combine technology with urban planning and urban farming? What would that look like?
Oh man, I think it's really innovative. I think it can. I always jokingly, everything that I say is like it can build like that next wave of Wakanda. But I definitely think it changes the entire conversation around food agriculture and food innovation. Of that, the technology part is content. Everybody's into content creation and what they see on social media, what they can get in 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So showing those things of like building out a cool box, seeing another way of doing farming beyond just what we've kind of been maybe shown and maybe watered down of just like building beds or community gardens. That technology and that innovation, even in how you build the cool boxes, being able to do stuff just from like your phone or finger pad, or being able to control the temperatures of a cool box from like your house, or if you're out of town or something. I think that technology, and because there's so many more Black people getting into tech, connecting the dots with also school, that they're like STEAM and STEM is such a big deal. I think that it could go crazy. And then food, naturally, Keith Lee, I think, really helped that foodie wave of everybody loves to eat. Everybody loves to eat even more when they know it's kind of good for them. And I think people are more inclined now to know where it's coming from, like really where it's coming from. Not like I read the back of the label, but this is the person that it came from, and you can connect with it. That's something that, at least for me, growing up in Texas and not in Louisiana, you're never going to see the person who's behind, the pizza roll bag. You're never going to meet that person. But to be able to start to see those people, see it in like some type of online format or digital format of this is this, and this is how it grows. This is how you can grow it. That to me could be a total game changer. It's like that little seed plant that I didn't do it in grade school, but a lot of other people that I know, like you planted something and you had to watch it grow and take care of it and document it. I think that's like the epitome of, faith of a mustard seed, of growing it and watching it do its thing. So being able to like put that into in a technology kind of way, it opens a lot of room for innovation, for urban planning, agriculture, and technology.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned Keith Lee, because I follow him like a hawk. So I already have plans for when I go to Dallas, all the places he went to.
For sure, that he went to.
I'm just going to insert myself into it.
For sure.
But since we're speaking about innovation and impact, I wanted to know, my next question is about the challenges you face, as an urban planner. Now, what are those common obstacles? And I'm sure you're. I don't know if you're directly in government, but I'm sure that there are lots of obstacles. But what are those common obstacles, and like how can we support you in that effort? Like how can we assist you in making and easing that process through?
So I used to be in government until recently. My whole career has been in government. So that's how I learned about half of the stuff that y'all were talking about. I've heard in some form or another, either somebody yelling at me or like telling me to go look at something and read it. So from a government standpoint with planning, I think everybody knows that we don't have the capacity. And like I said before, food is just as important as the talk about affordable housing, the talk about economic mobility, infrastructure, transportation. Food is just as important and it needs to be prioritized as such. And so whether a city maybe it doesn't have the capacity to build out a division or a department, I think investing or at least working with partnering with organizations in their cities respectively that are doing it, uplifting them, it takes a load off of them and it makes them look good by association. Challenges as far as the planning part of it is people want solutions yesterday. Planning is unfortunately it's a long game. We have not always produced results in 5 to 10 years, sometimes 10 to 15 years. And that was a big part of planning that I criticized and that I did not like, which is why I started my firm also, was not to just throw something together that people just, to keep them quiet, but to start to at least build on it piece by piece that people can say, okay, you're being consistent, you're showing up, even if it's something small. That is something that is challenging, especially for communities of color that have already been oversold and underpromised. We needed it 10 years ago, and now it's gotten worse, like we told you it would. We don't really want to sit and wait for another Band-Aid solution. That's a big challenge of policy takes time, and policy is designed in a way that it's supposed to take time. It's supposed to deter you from wanting to see it through. And so that naturally discourages people from wanting to get involved with it. I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to go to one of these meetings, be to City Hall all the time, it's a lot. But that is the design of the system to where, well, if they give up, we don't have to worry about it. Nothing changes. We don't have to worry about even putting together a presentation. So that's definitely one of the challenges of being in the community and trying to provide solutions or at least conversation that being transparent that the policy is going to take time. And sometimes that for some people, getting to the policy may outlive them. And that's unfortunate, but that unfortunately is we're not only unraveling a lot of wrongs, but you're educating a lot of people too. I think for this group, I think just like educating people. Like I've learned so much just sitting on this car right now. But educating people and showing up, like seeing people who look like us that are growing food, but growing different types of food. People who are ranchers, people who are farmers. Like I didn't grow up in Louisiana. I grew up in Texas, but it wasn't uncommon to see like a Black farmer. Other people that may be more uncommon, but just seeing them in real time. This is what you grow. This is what you do. This is how you micro farm. This is how you do hydroponics. This is what all of this means, and this is how your food is made. Like there are people out there doing it, but I think there's a difference between educating people directly than educating them like while they're trying to eat. It's kind of like you got to kind of catch them in between bites. But when you're solely directed and educating them and talking to them about it, it's inspiring, it's motivating. Like I said, I never want to farm fully, but being around other people that are into it now, like I constantly look at acres and like, well, maybe I should just yes, see, maybe I should
She got you now.
buy an acre and just So yeah, it's inspiring, it's motivating in a way that when I go back home to Louisiana, when I go visit my family, and there's a huge lot of land next to my grandmother's house, and I'm like, I could do this probably. I could just live in her house. But then I know, like, I don't, you don't know the first thing about farming. You've never been grown. Like, I grew like 2 tomatoes in 2020, and that was out of like the pandemic. But I think people seeing it and recognizing that there's more to providing food than just like giving away plates or food pantry, urban community gardens, urban farms. You know what I'm saying? Like there are other ways to solve this crisis, and there are people who look like you, like leading the charge for it.
Yes. And you actually brought up an excellent point that I'm going to bring to you about economic benefits. And so I mentioned it. And so the micro farmer, the small urban gardener, they want to enhance. You're growing to feed your family, but it'll be amazing if you can actually learn to create a larger profit for your family to be able to grow your operations. So can you discuss any economic benefits of integrating food and agriculture initiatives into urban planning? And how do those projects contribute to the local economy? And of course, we are talking about Dallas, but I would like to point out that this is universal. That's everywhere. The conversation about food, agriculture initiatives, urban planning, and the local economy now are becoming two opposite sides of the coin, I guess you could say. So tell me about how those projects that you've heard about contribute to the local economy.
Man, I think so my first thought of it is trendy spots, places that people hang out a lot, brunch, being able to, they generate a lot of people. It's a hangout spot. Being able to provide them with like whatever it is that you supply, whatever you grow. I think that's first thing, direct. People know exactly where it's coming from and that grower. And that puts you on a scale of, that's probably a consistent buyer. That's one avenue of it, because businesses so pro business, and other places too, of being in that scene to where you have access to a group of people that wouldn't just normally come to the farm or wouldn't just normally like sit down and hear about micro farming. Your harvest or your produce or your veggies are directly in whatever they're eating. So that's not only adding to that, but it's like the authenticity of you're eating decent, and even though you're out, it doesn't have to just be like horribly fried and things of that nature. So I think the economic benefit there is one lane of it. Providing jobs, the economic mobility aspect of it, of pitching that as a micro farm. If I can grow more and comfortably pay people, or even pay myself and pay my family, now I've created an enterprise that allows me to have a team that if I have stuff in the stores, they can work on that, and I can still work on the part that I love the most, which is being in the garden, working directly with the plants and the soil, and being able to kind of pretty much create like a chain or ecosystem again of, we have this streamlined process from the soil to the store type of deal. And even if you don't plan on like hiring people, there's an opportunity to have employees, not just, volunteers are great, but when you work somewhere, you have a different kind of like hustle about it. You just move differently. And I think that allows you to be in these spaces where if it's when we talk about incubator spaces or like shared space for businesses, people hardly ever think, oh, that space could be good for a micro farmer. But why not? If you can grow vertically and you can grow at your house, then I'm pretty sure if you were in a building and it was chopped up into different suites and you just needed a space that was, had more direct access to direct sunlight, it would work just like you would do it at home. And so I think that's changing the narrative of farming as a business in spaces that we don't usually see it. So like when we talk about that, like, oh, nobody ever says like, oh yeah, we should have a farmer in here. Maybe a last person or a barber, but never a farmer. But why not?
Mm-hmm.
You need the same way of like, if you were to grow at home and you wanted to store stuff outside of your house, naturally so, you could still do that at this space because you're moving at that pace, you're growing at that pace. I think for planning, it's, for most cities that I've seen, at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, it's not talked about enough as something that is economic vitality. It's looked at as something that's leisurely. And although that can totally be the case, when we talk about communities of color, farming, agriculture has been the economic driver. It has been a revenue source. It has been that is your job. You get to do it for leisure when all of it, like everything is done. That is the leisure, but naturally that is work. So understanding that on a policy level, that we have policy that says, okay, you can do it leisurely, you have the ag exemption, or if you're doing it at your house, just on a small scale, and you're not selling it. But what about the people who still want to be small scale, but they want it to be a business? Why should we restrict them any differently than somebody who's, I don't know, making shirts from their house and doing the same thing? Eventually, they'll want to grow too. It's the same type of business of, if I were to drive past your house, I wouldn't know that you were growing unless I'm like, your backyard faces the street, but I wouldn't know. Same thing if you did shirts in your house, I wouldn't know you did shirts because you do it in either a bedroom in your house or your garage. It's still a small business that should be treated and, respected as such from a planning standpoint, like a land use and a zoning standpoint. And that is something that I think there's a lack of disconnect, a lack of understanding. If you don't have food systems people on your team, or if you don't have people who have seen it as, okay, food systems should be covered in policy as a tool for education and awareness, but also as a tool for commercial use. Yeah, it can be one and the same, just like school, universities. Universities are for learning, but you also pay tuition. They can both exist at the same time. So that, I hope that answered your question. I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow with it.
Well, I see a lot of large empty spaces and lots in Dallas, a lot, especially in areas where they have really high food insecurity. You're riding on Illinois, Marsalis, right here in Oak Cliff, a lot of empty lots. And so in my mind, I was like, how can we coordinate, again, I'm talking about Courtney Marion again, urban planning with all these empty spaces, and they're irregular shaped spaces, so it's not like you're really gonna put something on there. But it's open greenery, and how can we correlate into economic development and food agriculture in these empty spaces? Where is the avenue to allow that urban planning and the agriculture to come together with those different spaces? What do you think are the steps for that?
I think so. A part that you mentioned really stuck out. Irregular lots. If it's irregular, like you said, nobody's looking at it to build a house. If it's kind of like L-shaped. So for the planning side, I think that is, the city of Dallas has something in their ordinances that mentions community garden, of course, as a community benefit. Certain amount of acres or whatever, and it's not a large amount of acres, like if I recall correctly. I think that is having that policy, and it doesn't exist. So you have some wiggle room to challenge them on. I purchased this, or I'm wanting to do micro farming, urban farming on this lot. I may also want to build like a small shed or put a container in it. I'll start to operate like a small market. This is a need this is something that you're telling me that you need, and I see it all the time. This is how I'm now filling into this market space to do that. And the background of that is, of course, they might give you a runaround, but in reality, if it's things that the city already says is permitted, I'm gonna just hodgepodge them together and make it work in the way that I need it to work. So I think this first step is identifying that language of, okay, where they've talked about community gardens as a community benefit, wherever that is, I can't recall, but I'll look it up tonight. And then taking it to the next level of, okay, if we go to the owner and he's okay, if he or she and we lease it, we want to be able to do this, this, and this. But we want to know that we can do it before we get into a long-term agreement with them. That is a big thing that I see a lot of people do. They, like you said, they see a lot of vacant land. It's abandoned. I don't ever see nobody doing anything with it. I'm gonna just set up shop. And that usually ends up being so much more costly because either the owner finds out and they want to sue, or the city finds out and they want to hit you with all these citations and fines, or whatever the case may be. So I think the first step is, like you said, just at its base, I just want to be able to grow out there. Just some vertical rods, no biggie. And then eventually I want to put a building. On the back end, it's, okay, looking at the planning, looking at the permitting of wherever that lot is, can they build like a 10 by 10, like get it dropped in from Lowe's or something. And if that's cool, okay, that's step one. Now, I'm not going to tell you to like manipulate the city, but there's gray in there to where like, okay, when I put one building down, what is it gonna hurt if I put like another vertical and I added a smaller building? And I know it sounds bad, but yeah, the city's not gonna. They can't catch everyone. They can't enforce everything, and they can't regulate everything. And there's some of the things in agriculture that simply they can't be regulated. That's just the reality of it. Of course, having hands that's gonna likely give you away. But if you put a 10 by 10 structure on there from Lowe's, and that's already okay. It's not. I'm not doing anything outside of what this lot would be used for. There's that. So I think it's like kind of piecing apart, putting together different hodgepodge pieces of what the city already says is okay. They haven't merged the two to like make it okay in one central location. But we have this lot, it's zoned whatever. But in that zoning, it allows you to have an accessory unit. Maybe you need a house for that first. But if there's a building there, can I place a small building there? In that building, I can do my micro farming. I can use the grass, and that's it. If the city were to say, well, if it's a business, then it has to have this many parking spaces. Okay, people can park on the street, or they can park on the street, just depending on how the lot is set up. You know what I'm saying? So, at the smallest level, it's just like identifying what the city has already, and then identifying what you can do over time that, for lack of better words, they're not going to catch it right at the beginning. What can we start doing? Like, if we were to go get it tomorrow, could we start going out there and putting up rods? People will notice, but they're not going to call.
Good stuff. This is where I'm learning so much. Good. I didn't realize we were over an hour. Usually we open it up for with questions from the audience as well. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm sure all of us have more questions. So as I ask my next question, if anyone has any questions, you feel free to raise your hand or just put it in the chat. So I'll keep going here. You hit one of my questions already, which was on education and just overall community awareness. So I won't ask that one, but my next question is really just on the future of urban ag and its role in really transforming urban spaces, like what you were just discussing. Is there any trends out there, developments that you think we should be paying attention to?
I should have the answer for that. You probably, the ones that you know, they're probably the ones that I know. If anything, I would say trends from at least the planning side of post-pandemic, we are seeing a lot more vacant buildings. We're seeing a lot more vacant lots. And so cities are trying to find ways to adapt and reuse those lots and get them off the tax roll if they're city owned. Even developers, they may be asking for an outrageous amount of money. But I've learned in the last couple of months that there are more good faith property owners who have recognized that they don't want the property, or they don't want to build on it, and they want to be able to give it or sell it to someone who has good intentions. So I think that is a trend in planning that is happening very quickly. And it's either pushing gentrification, depending on who you ask, or it's opening opportunity for places that are landlocked, some available property. So looking at ways of bringing farming in those spaces of kind of like a park, but it also cultivates urban farming agriculture. So from a planning standpoint.
Is there like a list or a website that we can check every now and then to see where those opportunities are that you know of? Yeah.
For vacant lots and stuff? Or
yes.
Planning trends? Oh, vacant lots.
Both actually, buildings, that, like you said, based on the pandemic, that, owners may be looking. Oh, I see somebody put something in the chat here too. So any feedback on that would be great. I know we have a lot of us on here and a lot more people who are very interested in in those type of opportunities and where to find them, versus being the last one to know, which usually is what happens with us.
Got you. So I'm gonna drop the link to DCAT in the chat. So if you can look up properties, at least I use it to look up property ownership. So that at least kind of gets you on the kind of ball of, okay, if I don't see any information, then yeah, see, he was already there. It'll get you the ball rolling of who's there, and it doesn't give you info. It gives you like their mailing address, but at least it lets you know like who owns it or who you thought might have owned it and they don't. And then I'm gonna find the link for when it goes to the tax roll. So when it goes to auction, basically it's free for all. Sometimes properties are $1, $50. Just depends. But I always tell people it's on the tax roll. Check which, if it's a Dallas County one, check which city it's in, because all of their regulations are different. And then B, make sure that it is not a lemon property, i.e. that it's like submerged in the floodplain or something. So you can't, I mean, it'd be good for farming, but if you're trying to build a structure, maybe not so much.
The city of Dallas has a link on it. I visited it. They actually have a lot of land that's kind of has a tax lien. They're trying to sell it for an inexpensive price, and it lets you know if there is how long they've been holding the land and what they've appraised the property for and what it's selling for and what the tax lien is on it. Yeah, it gets kind of minuscule when you get a little bit closer to the real urban area. And that's an issue I noticed with urban planning is what is actually urban. The land gets smaller and smaller as you get closer and closer to the populated areas, but it's there. With Dallas's land, it kind of becomes larger and more accessible and more of it as you go further north, but it does exist. It does have a nice list.
For sure. And I think with the county, it may tell you if there's liens on it, but you have to call and ask, or they'll tell you at the auction. So the one with the city is a little bit more like at least you know what you're getting into as far as like how behind they may be or what they're asking for on top of like the purchase price.
All right. Wow. I will say one thing. I'm a big advocate of turning floodplain properties into farmland, because that was bad urban planning from the start, in my opinion. Turning those properties into those spaces into properties, but that's a whole other conversation.
No, really not, because when you look into growing on the land, that we actually talk about that in our training, and I've mentioned that when you grow and you put in solid roots and you grow produce, grass, or some vegetation grows into that soil, it prevents that flooding. So city urban planners, I feel, need to have a closer relationship with those in the urban ecology and biology, such as myself or a grower, because there are different things that we do that actually enhances the city. So when it comes to flooding, so it just drives me crazy. They keep putting this Bermuda grass on the side of the farmer's road on the side here, and the water runs off and all of our intersections are flooded. Well, I mean, if you put a cover crop on the side of there, maybe it will suck up that rain and it wouldn't go into the streets. But that comes with, the knowledge. So I guess that's when urban planning and farming can come together, and hopefully we'll be able to have those conversations here in the near future.
That's for sure. You and I, man, when at least from a planting side, like landscaping, because I'm not a trained landscape architect, I've had multiple just like long threads of emails of people that didn't even want to do the Bermuda at least. It's just like, I'm gonna put berms out there and that'll be good. So it's from a planner's and a city standpoint of like, that's not good enough, from like an aesthetic viewpoint, but then also from a functionality viewpoint of like, this doesn't make any sense. It's actually making the problem worse. And so, yes, you're right. Property that's on the foreclosure list is a planning fail, or it is the city let somebody do something that was a horrible idea, and of course it shouldn't have been okayed, and then it fell through, and now they don't want it anymore. So it's a property that they've let sit. It might be a brownfield, or they've let different toxins and environmental things. They just haven't been taking care of it. So it is a fail on the planning side of maybe we should have said no from the beginning.
So we have a question from an attendee, from Alexis Alexis, thank you so much for your question. It says, as a new community and economic development agent in Dallas, I have an influx of people. Let's see questions coming. I have an influx of people looking to learn how to grow. How would you recommend connecting them to growers in Dallas?
Excuse me. This is a good group. I found this one on the old social media.
Oh, she has
And
a
I
follow-up,
started.
by the way. I'm sorry. She has a follow-up. She says she serves as the Prairie View A&M Community and Economic Development Agent in Dallas County. One of our major program area is business development with some focus on urban farming. I have several people interested and I'm struggling to find a starting point for them. Do you have advice related to getting started?
Have you heard? So first thing, have you heard of Paul Quinn? I say that because they have the We Over Me farm, and I think that's a really good entry level into farming. That's how I met Miss Kim. I met her when she was at Paul Quinn, and what they've done with the We Over Me farm, of like transform a football field into a farm. So I think that is, if they're still doing the farm, that is a good starting point. If not, I think they are. I think that just the capacity is different. And I started finding farmers and growers. They have like these classes. What are they called? Some of them, I think I found people in like a compost class. And so I just kind of went on a rabbit hole of compost, and that's like difference between composting and gardening and community gardening, community farming. Some of those I just found on, like, at the time I was working in the city of Lancaster, so I would just go look in like the city website, our side, but also the rec center, because the rec center would host the classes. What they were doing, like composting classes. From a business development side, I think this group, Texas Small Farmers, is a good one that I learned a lot about. Business development. I would say restorative, at least just to like get a different perspective on it, because they are similar to how Miss Arlana mentioned, an exception where they are and how they function. I think bon ton, but it's very, very macro. And then even the hydroponics at State Fair. Drew's a cool guy. I just always have a hard time getting a hold of him. But I don't know if those are good business development, because they're all, with the exception of bon ton, they're all like kind of community centered. So they want to make money, but they're not really focused on like how do you build a business and become like successful, thriving, profitable. That part I'm gonna have to do some homework on.
I'm gonna chime in only because we have a rock star here who's being modest. But we've just kicked off. You see the name down there, I ain't gonna say no names of the Solutions Holistic Farm.
Okay.
We've kicked off in the Dallas area. It's a pilot cohort that Arlana runs. So I will endorse her. I know Brad Bull with Restorative Farms, heard of Bonton, heard of some of the other ones, but I can definitely vouch for Arlana. So Alexis, if you are looking, we got your email here. I see it in the chat. Maybe we can talk offline or put you in connection with Arlana and make sure that your folks at least chime in, jump in on a couple of trainings and see if it's their flavor. But definitely there's something behind, being, as Desiree, as Dee said, being with your peers, learning together, just that comfort zone. And these are business incubator programs that we're piloting and we're taking notes, what's working, what isn't. And it's not going to do anything but get better and better. Another thing we are, I'm probably not supposed to say this because Uche is not teed up yet, but we're going to be having a boot camp for urban growers coming up June 1st and 2nd. It will be at North Texas, Dallas. So right there, Oak Cliff. It's limited space because of the budgeting on the project. So there's 35 spaces. So You're kind of hearing that hot off the press there. So I encourage you to, we'll talk about it. Stay in touch with us. Well, I don't know if Uche is planning on putting that on our website. If we're going to do come one, come all, first come, first serve type of situation, which is probably what it will be since it's in Dallas area. But that's also one that folks can get a sneak preview on urban ag business development. It's just going to be a 2-day boot camp coming up June 1st and 2nd. So stay tuned for that one as well. But thank you so much for asking. And I know either Arlana, myself, or Uche will grab your information out the note section here and be in touch.
I got
And
information. And I will. Oh, sorry. I'll just say sign up for our newsletter, and you'll receive weekly updates. And as soon as the boot camp is ready and good to go, you'll be the first to hear it.
Yes, yes. And I apologize, Alexis. I was kind of waiting on the guys, the team. And this is a new initiative. We've kind of gotten started, but we haven't gone too far. We've had some sessions, and it's specifically catered to economic development of the urban gardener. Speaking, okay, but there is some we're really working on business concepts and evolving to manage our farming operations. Evolving basically is specifically the word, because we know how to grow, but historically we're not properly managing our money to become economically prosperous and wealthy. So we're actually working on a little financial literacy and how to build those basic foundations of having a business. So this is a new space. This is something that I've been doing forever on my own, just doing it on my own. So just combining and joining with Texas Small Farmers and making it come to life is new. So I wasn't sure if I was to say anything, but please, we'll definitely be in contact, and I would love to meet with you and discuss that a little bit further, because it's wonderful. It's really growing an amazing thing, and I'm definitely gonna be connecting with Desiree.
I was just about to ask about the cohort.
Yeah, so yes, and there are different levels to the cohort. So there is something for a beginner, small container, but our business operations side is we'll definitely add you to that part. And Desiree, this is the guidance and my association with Texas Small Farmers is what gave me some direction to start solutions and to really just take what I was wanting to do and what was my passion. And that is going to be an area where I want to work with policies and local policy makers to make sure that gateway, to make it easier for the urban farmer and a micro farmer to take advantage of the city. We don't want to have to be forced out into the country. We want to work in the city, take care of the people in the city. And so food insecurity is a big part, health disparities. So we're going to bring all that together.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
then, if you have a business, then we just bring it all together,
Most definitely.
We had another question. Oh, yes. I didn't want us to overlook. I saw it earlier. Ples, I want to bring attention. He asks, please explain brownfield.
Oh, sorry. It's basically a lot that typically there was a building that was then sometimes really heavy industrial use. It's been torn down, or it's still standing and it's just like falling apart. And all of the toxins from that building, like say it was an auto body shop, all of the paint, all of that stuff was just being improperly dumped. So it was being dumped directly into the soil, directly onto the land. And so now it has all these issues, kind of like when a building has asbestos. So when the building comes down, all of that stuff, most people don't do remediation properly or at all. So all of those toxins have sat in the land, sat vacant, sat dormant, and pretty much erodes like the natural foundation of that property. So when you go to look for it, it is either sometimes it's flagged, but it has all these issues that makes it challenging to build on, to remediate, engineering issues, piping issues. So it's basically a lot that is filled with environmental toxins for the most part? That's a good question.
Love.
Excellent question. I know we're getting close to the time, so we always try to stay within the 90-minute mark. So we're going. I know there's more questions. If there is anything I miss, I do apologize. But we're gonna wrap things up here. As you heard earlier, unless someone else has something to say. This is very informative. I learned so much tonight, Dee. So, man, I'm so glad that when I saw your article, I thought to bring you on. Great stuff, great informative, and can't wait for Uche to have the opportunity to get this out and about social media, all that stuff. So, in the meantime, if anyone wants to reach out, there's our contact information above. We snuck D in there too. So, if anyone on there heard some nuggets that you want to kind of go deeper, but more one-on-one, there it is. There's that contact information. As Uche shared with you, center point of all of our communication, everything we do, is through that newsletter that goes out every Tuesday. And in that newsletter, we have information on upcoming events. We share, little tips and best practices. We like to share news that's either local or national that we feel like the people that we work with and serve need to know. So please make it a habit. If you don't do anything else, just to click on that, peruse through, pick your flavor. Usually only around 4 or 5 different articles on there. We don't try to oversaturate you with a bunch of information, but we do like to keep it consistent, so we're all in the loop. So with that said, unless I am missing anything, thanks so much to our panelists. Special thanks to our special guest, Desiree Powell, and special thank you to each one of you for joining us and taking time out of your busy evening to join us tonight. And till next time, be the exception.
Thank y'all. See y'all soon.
Y'all have a great week.
You too.
Thank you.